Welcome back to the channel. I hope everything is well with you guys. I'm so glad you stopped in because today's video I'm going to show you how I transformed into Maleficent. And thank you all who voted for this look. I absolutely had a great time making it for you. I hope you all enjoy it. And if you'd like to see past looks and videos or vote on my next look, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. The links are below, and I'll see you in the next video. I start this look by making the horns out of aluminum foil and electrical tape. Lots of electrical tape. Tearing off a big piece of aluminum foil, I take the bottom corner and I start to wrap that up to the other corner, and this is so that the top gets a little bit thinner and you have that pointed horn, thinner look at the top. And I'm more concerned overall with the shape and the height of the horns at this time. And I'm sorry about the angle, guys. I am still not used to filming everything I fabricate, so just bear with me, hang on tight. I promise it will get better. And then once I have a general shape here, I make the other horn, and the next step will be to wrap the electrical tape around the horn to the top. Starting at the bottom, I take the electrical tape and begin to wind this all the way to the tip of the horn, being sure to overlap in between so that none of that aluminum foil comes through. Also, you're going to want to do the bottom as well. So just go ahead and carry that all the way up to the top of the horns, and if they become misshapen at the top, you can take some scissors and make that point a little bit more defined. In this next shot, you'll see that I made two horns. The orientation's not correct, but that's what I mean by they are easy to manipulate, so I was able to bend those back into the proper shape. The next process is the cheek prosthetic, and I used air foam, and this is a little bit different for me. This is the first time I use this medium. I found that kneading it in your fingers before you apply it onto your face cast made it more pliable, and it dries a lot faster than modeling clay. And also, if you do not have a face cast, pick you out something from a hobby store that's face-like. I know that Michael's carries a mannequin head made out of foam, and so that will get you by and make it a little bit easier to have these sculpts fit your face a little bit better. And sculpting the other side, I take more foam clay, knead it in my hands, roll it up to a small little sausage, and I'll start to create the other side of the cheek prosthetic. And keep in mind that our faces are asymmetrical, so you're going to want these to look like sisters and not like twins. And I left thin, I rolled it thin down to an easier blending for the face. So once I built the prosthetic up on each side, I smoothed it out with a little bit of water, and I made the portions that would blend into the skin to be thin. Here you see the final result from my sculpting. It's time to remove the sculpt from the face cast. I use a small thin tool to get up under the prosthetic, and I had an issue and I could not remove it as easily as I would have liked. You see that it busted up a good bit. When I do get them off, I label them left and right to save myself some guessing during application. And I wanted to show you how pliable that foam clay actually was. It's still flexible to a point, but it will break, so be careful about how much you test this. And I knew that I would trim up the edges, but I just did not know how much effort it would take to remove this from the face cast. For future reference, I would put down a coat of Vaseline and not bleed out the edges so thin as to run into this problem again. Moving on to the collar, I take a can of hair color and I spray that onto these leaves I had used in a previous look. They are floral leaves, so they bend easily, and I just coat them in the hair color. And the reason why I use hair color and not actual spray paint is because you can work indoors with this and it can be cleaned up with soap and water. In prepping the collar for the robe, I am going to attach leaves to this floral piping that I picked up, and then I will measure that out and lay that down on the collar. And I got a great tip from a friend and a follower on Twitter. Horror Movie Net recommended at the time, because my concern was that I did not want to puncture and ruin this fabric because I use this often. So he recommended that I try Velcro, so I picked up a Super Duty Velcro to attach the collar to the robe, and I really do appreciate that. Check him out on Twitter, he's got some great content. Once that floral piping is measured out, I set it down and I take my hair color again and I go over that just so it's not as noticeable in the costume. Now it's time to attach the leaves to this piping, and with the floral wire at the bottom, I just wrap it around and I made sure that it would lay on the shoulders, and making sure that none of that wire hits the neck and becomes uncomfortable. And you'll see that it does get thin as you wrap it around, and that's okay because you're actually going to hide this piping. So here is 3 leaves per side. It's time to attach the leaves to the other side of the piping, making sure that they lay down on the shoulders in the design. And you will see that my reason for using the floral wire and the leaves, floral leaves, fake leaves, is because they bend easily. So if I wanted that collar to move up and be more dramatic, it would have been easy to manipulate it during photo shoots, during filming, and they lay back down pretty easy. It's time to attach the Velcro strips to the robe itself. I took a pair of scissors and I cut as many pieces that I would need. I believe I used about 5 pieces here, and I get the film off the back and I attach that to the collar itself, and I did not have a problem. This collar did not move. I did not have to rearrange it. I did not have to adjust it once, and it held on pretty good. So thank you to Horror Movie Nut. Don't forget to check him out on Twitter. He's got some great content. On to the makeup. I chose to go with a more of a flesh tone skin color instead of the promotional posters for the movie Maleficent that stars Angelina Jolie, where her skin tone is white. I was working fast because it was raining, and it was raining off and on all day, so I chose to go with a look that I would not have to paint my neck, my hands, and my arms. So I chose to use a more of a natural skin tone instead of white. Moving on to the eyeshadow part of this look, I'm using the Morphe 24G Grand Glam palette. I dipped into the colors Creamer and Frenchie, and I buffed that in for my transition and in my crease shade, keeping it subtle because Maleficent's makeup is more geared toward her red lips and her overall look, which is her cheeks and her horns with her headpiece. To darken up the outer V of the makeup, I used the Colourpop Smoke Show, which has since been named Blowing Smoke palette. I use the light gray color Ignite, and I start to butt that into the crease and carrying it along the outer V. And I also carried this up under the waterline of the eyelid, and this is going to open and make your eyes look even bigger. And if that's something that you need for this look, and that's how dramatic you want it to be, you just carry that up under that waterline, up under the eyelid. Move it along to the eyeliner. I used more of a flesh toned color. This keeps the eyes open and makes them bigger. You can use darker, but it will make the eyes look smaller. You can even use white, and I did. I popped a little bit of white in on that bottom waterline just to make sure that my eyes continue to pop and stay big for this look. Taking an eyeliner for the top of the eyelash, I used a felt tip pen. This is the Wet n Wild 16 Hour eyeliner. I like this one because it's not too wet. The formula dries pretty easy and it dries all matte. Was not sure what eyelashes I was going to use for the look yet, and so I did not know the type of eyelash band I was going to be using. So in order to make that be more cohesive, I made sure to go through just enough over the eyelid at the top, not a wing, just to be able to cover up that band in case I used a heavy band. The eyelashes that I'm using for this look is from the Inky Minky lash line in the style Heather Gorgeous. I'm using the Duro lash adhesive, and I apply a small amount onto the band, and then I bend the band a little bit so it takes on a more of a natural shape. And I let that get a little bit tacky before I apply it for a few seconds, and you can still manipulate it and move it around a little bit, but it actually stays in place the more tacky you let that glue get. It is time for that Disney villain eyebrow. And the Disney villain eyebrow comes with a high arch in the very center. So I carried from the inside to the tail. I made a higher arch than what I normally have to more of a point. And I just filled those in until I got the look that I wanted, making sure to drag that tail out to the very edge of the eye. And that will give you the Disney villain eyebrow look. It is time for the cheek applications, but first things first, because I thought about it and I did not want to forget this step because I forgot about it in the past, is I took Vaseline and I protected my natural hairline. I also do this to the top and the forehead as well as the back of my head. Now it is time to take my cheek prosthetics, lay them out, take a look, see where I wanted to position them, and I took some liquid latex, poured that into a pan where I could dip a Q-tip into the mix and get that applied onto the back of the sculpt. Applying liquid latex to the back of these cheek prosthetics, I stopped for a moment to make sure that that bottle of latex was secure, and the lid popped off. I retrieved it. There we go. Get that sucker on there. You do not want that bottle to dry up. That's just an expensive bottle. And I lay down the cheek prosthetics and I get them secure. If there's any pieces that lift up, you can just take a Q-tip and go up underneath and press down until it gets secure. It won't take long for it to stay in place, but it might take a little bit longer for it to dry, so try not to move them. And go ahead and I lay down on both sides. Again, working with the other side, I take a Q-tip and apply liquid latex. I did have to cut my cheek prosthetics a little bit more around the edges, which made for a bigger gap in the transition. And I just want to show you guys what can happen when things don't go your way. I had to use scar wax to make the transition from the cheek prosthetic because they're so prominent down to the skin, but I'm not going to hide my pitfalls and where things didn't work for me. I want you guys to learn from my mistakes, make your best judgment call on how you want to create your look. And here you see that I am going through with my scar wax and I'm filling in the gaps, so when it from the prosthetic bleeds out into the skin, it looks a little bit more natural. And so it's a learning process, and I just want you to see how realistic it is. And I don't want you to get the idea that I'm perfect. I'm not. And you're going to have areas that you have problems with. And once you do this enough, you'll learn quickly how to tackle those problems. So I wanted to show you guys what I went through, and that it is okay, and that it's still fun, and that you can achieve the look that you want, and just be able to change things as needed, and that's a lot of the process. Is things might not work like you think they will, so you have to go through and change it up and make it work for you, and that's what's happening here. It's time to apply the ball cap by setting down a thin layer of liquid latex, pulling that over to the top. Be sure to protect your hairline. And I also had to use bobby pins for the back because I do have a lot of hair. But with the electrical tape, I go over the entire ball cap, going left to right each time, overlapping each piece of electrical tape that I set down. Now I'm having to scramble, you guys. There's things that I did not get recorded because currently I heard the thunder was rolling and I had to get out quickly, and so you did not see me. I don't have the footage for me attaching the horns, but all I did was use electrical tape and applied those onto the headpiece. And also the lipstick I used is from the Colourpop's Disney villain collection called Evil Queen, and it worked just fine and it shows up great on film. Here is the final look. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to check out the walk that Maleficent has throughout the woods, the link is above. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.